Hey, so this is really random, and I guess it's gonna be pretty off the cuff, um, 'cause I just saw this tweet, about inclusive language, and it got me thinking, and I actually wrote, it made me look up this, I think Instagram post that I wrote a few months back in response to someone talking about inclusive language. So this wasn't exactly the first time that I had these thoughts, but this is, I guess, the most recent, and it it really it really frustrated me even more than the first time that I sort of mini ranted about it in a post, and it's very annoying, this term, because it's very deceitful when you unpack it, when you dissect it even just a bit. So like the thing that I saw tweeted about recently was the NHS sort of demanding that terms like chest feeding and frontal birth be used instead of breastfeeding and vaginal birth, and it's being framed as a necessary gesture to be inclusive. And it got me thinking about that again, and really thinking about it in that word inclusive, and how unfitting it is, because like, how is that inclusive? How does calling breastfeeding chest feeding include more people? Like, it's still true that only one type of people can breastfeed, or chest feed, whatever you call it. It's still true that, like, just changing a term like vaginal to frontal, how does that include more people? There's still just the one type of people who can do these things, who can breastfeed, who can who can give a vaginal birth, who can birth human life at all. It's still female people. Like, no additional humans are included just because you change the language. Like, it's like, it begs the question, who are these additionally included humans in this category of chest feeders and front birth givers or havers or whatever? There's, it's like nothing has actually changed. This is like a really, it feels so immature. It feels so much like gaslighting, because it is gaslighting. It's very, the intent is so clearly to, like, spare the feelings of of women, of female people who don't like to be reminded that they are female. That's what it is. It's not adding more humans into the category of people who can give birth. It's not adding more people. Like, nothing actually changes except that women and girls, unfortunately, who don't like to be reminded that they are women and girls or female at all, are being spared. It's an attempt to spare them the reminder. That's what it is. And we have to, like, yet again, play along with this sort of delusional idea that you're actually doing something by changing breastfeeding to chest feeding. Like, why? Like, and then this goes back to this argument that I made when I responded to that trans mom, or that mother of a supposed trans child, that supposed mother of a supposed trans child on Twitter, where this thing of not even being able to name your body parts with maturity is a sign that things are not okay. Like, you're not coping. Like, it's like when someone expresses this inability to acknowledge the correct names of their body parts, the logical response and the more compassionate response would be to dig into that, would be to get these people to a mental place where this wasn't an issue. These are sounds. These are sounds. These are sounds in our language. It's like, it's not reasonable to not be able to name your body parts correctly. There is more wrong. You are not fixed. You are not mentally okay and healthy if you cannot even call feeding a child with your breast breastfeeding. If you cannot call your breast breast, that's something is wrong. Something is still wrong. It's like if men, because this is something we share, if men and women, or if men started saying they don't like to call their nipples nipples because it feels too feminine, we would sit them down and have a talk about how absurd they're being, about how crazy and unreasonable and wrong and even kind of misogynistic they're being. We wouldn't say, okay, we'll call them man dots. You know, that's such an immature thing to do. But that's what trans-identified female people are demanding and requesting as a method of coping with the fact of their femaleness. Do you get me? Like, this is not a reasonable coping mechanism. It's a very unhealthy and immature one when you think about it. And this is not even, it's not even like again, sorry to repeat myself, but this quote-unquote inclusive language, it doesn't include more people. It just serves to help some of the people already included in that category of humans to not be reminded of their sex. And in turn, it alienates and like low-key shames the majority in the group about using the correct terms for their body parts. Like, it took us so long. Just 6 years ago we're talking, like this, it was still a struggle, but we were getting there. We were starting to call breasts, call vaginas, vaginas, and use the correct names, locate the vagina, accurately. Like, I remember that was a plot line in Orange is the New Black, and so many women were discussing how, oh yeah, I didn't even know that this part was the vagina and this part was the mons pubis, etc., etc. And now we're like definitely regress into this place of being shamed in a different way out of using the correct terms for our bodies. Like, so it's so bad for trans-identified females that they can't admit that they share the same parts as cis females, as cis women. Like, how is that a healed mind to people? How is that like no red flags going off for TRA allies, I suppose? Like, that these people, this is the thing, this is why I to be a TRA who isn't trans-identifying yourself, you have to be sexist. And that is the most consistent thing I see with trans-identified, with trans right activists allies, is they are always sexist, usually quite misogynistic, always. Even people I kind of like, Nicole Byer. Like, I wanted to make a whole series of just random, wildly misogynistic and sexist things that people I know and I've followed for years now, and know to be trans allies, the sexist shit they say, the sexist shit they think. Like, if you're an outsider, definitely, but I mean, even if you're a trans-identified person, but especially if you're an outsider, your understanding of trans identity is rooted in sexism. Full stop. Like, no questions asked here. You are definitely a sexist. And, like, I've never been so certain of that. Like, the more I talk to the allies, the more they reveal how sexist they think. Because you can't even do it. You can't support trans ideology. So many of these, like, Destinies and, Destiny, the big debater on YouTube, and the Voshes, those types, they're like coming from a place of, yeah, that feminine dude is not a man to me. That's low-key what they're thinking. That's sometimes even sort of saying when they talk too much. When you let them talk, that's what they reveal. It's sexism. They don't consider, if ContraPoints tomorrow said, I'm a man, call me a man, they're gonna struggle. Even if they want to be polite, they will inside struggle. They don't consider this person who looks so gender non-conforming to be a man. That's what the real root of it is for those, like, lefty bros who so hardcore support trans-identified people, support in heavy quotation marks. It's because they're sexist. They of course they do. Like, anyone who is sexist, if they're not right-leaning, they will have no trouble supporting trans ideology because they already lean that way. They already lean into struggling to see gender non-conforming women as women and gender non-conforming men as men. You already have all these sexist biases that, not your fault. I'm seeing, there are kids in my life, I'm seeing learning all of these gender norms, and it starts so young and it goes so deep. I get it. Was living this world too, but you're supposed to be intelligent enough to start unpacking that. You don't lean into it. That's what that's what TRAs and allies of trans people do. They lean into it. That's what that is. Their allyship is leaning heavy into sexism. Like, if you just have a conversation with it, oh my god, it's like, I don't know, it's like been this thing floating in my mind. I've said it for years now, but I'm so aware of it now. I'm so aware of it. Just like listening to TRA ally after or not even ally, I could just say TRA after TRA after TRA, who isn't trans identifying themselves. They're always so sexist. The more you get to know them, they are super sexist. And it's like, of course they are. You can't even have one without the other. You can't even be an outsider of that experience of being gendered or sex dysphoric, gender dysphoric, whatever you want to call it, dysphoric about your sex. You can't be so committed to this ideology as an outsider without being a sexist. It just doesn't happen. It can't happen because one requires the other. It really does. That's the thing, I didn't want to just say that because it felt too big a claim. But I'm gonna just go out on a limb here and say that now. And I don't know if I'll get into that series on dissecting random allies of the basically mostly entertainment community. On many podcasts they've revealed these things, and many random YouTube videos too. They've revealed these biases whatever about themselves, and every time it happens, I'm like, there it is. And I know this one's a TRA because they say it. They say it loud and proud. Or, yeah, a TRA. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. You can't be like GNC man is woman if he says so without being extremely sexist, even if you're not aware of it somehow, even if you're an unwitting participant in sexism. You definitely are a sexist, for sure, like undeniably. Because, like, end of the day, beginning of the day, middle of the day, breasts are breasts. Right? Breasts are breasts, just like nipples are nipples. Men have them, women have them. Men even technically have breasts because they have breast tissue. We all do, all humans do. So breasts are breasts. So when you're feeding your child, even if a male is feeding, a whole ass and real legit man was feeding his child somehow, because that's actually happened, with his nipple, successfully, even unsuccessfully, he is breastfeeding. That's what that's called. So that there's a group of women and girls who are so, like, messed up in the head that they can't even say the name. Like, these are just sounds. They don't have any inherent power. It's just a sound for the body part, and you can't even say the sound for the body part because you're that mentally unwell. And we're supposed to honor this delusion and this low-key misogyny, this self-hate to the extreme, because it's rude not to. This is the society we live in now. And this is where that lie that they say about sex is different from gender gets exposed. Because if sex is different from gender, why can't we name the body parts correctly? Why can't we say female body parts? Why can't we acknowledge your femaleness? Even though you identify as NB, even though you identify as a man. Why can't, then shouldn't, like, even if I were in your camp, my instincts, my non-sexist instincts still tell me, okay, then this just means that men can have breasts and vaginas too, and we still should call these things what they are. What is this thing of we can't call breasts breasts now if they're on a female who doesn't identify as a woman? Why does the body part name need to change? What is that about? What is that? Like, inclusive language, quote unquote, seems to be code for language that helps people in denial not be reminded of their biological sex, right? Like, let's be real here. This is so low-key harmful, to make names, the correct names of body parts, more taboo and essentially erase. This is why gender critical people say things like you're erasing women when you're not allowing women to say the correct names of their body parts because it triggers you, because it hurts you, it makes you sad to be reminded that you're female. That is a type of erasure. You're contributing and co-signing, erasing the normalcy of women referring to their body parts correctly. So that's all I really wanted to say about it. I saw this, and I guess I'll screenshot and share this tweet that I saw, and it's upsetting. What is becoming of the world is upsetting. What is happening with the rise of sexism and its new normalcy on both sides now, not just the right, now the left in their own way, in their way that sometimes feels worse, maybe because it's so covert. It's bad. It's bad out here. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Just a little rant about this this con of gender inclusive language. It's such a lie. It's really bad. This is really harmful. Yet again, women are the canaries in the coal mine and getting ignored until shit hits the fan, I suppose. That's always what they wait for. And Anyway, thank you for listening, and thank you for letting me rant at you, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye for now.